They are thinking, but the truth is simpler and far more brutal. They're just rehearsing the same fears, the same doubts, the same stories they've been telling themselves for years. They want freedom, yet they carry the same chains they never question. They speak of wanting peace, yet they refuse to release the thoughts that disturb them. They want clarity, but keep feeding the noise. And the Stoics would say, how could a mind be free if it is constantly imprisoned by its own unexamined beliefs? Look around you. Everyone is rushing, scrolling, comparing, competing, drowning quietly in thoughts that are not even theirs. And yet when you ask them what they truly want, they speak of peace. They speak of purpose. They speak of wanting a calm mind, a steady heart, a clear direction. But how can you build clarity on chaos? How can you walk a straight path when your mind keeps tripping you at every step? Freeing your mind is not a poetic ideal. It's a discipline, a practice, a confrontation with the truth you've been avoiding. You have become addicted to your own mental noise. The constant thinking, the worry, the tension, it feels familiar, and the familiar, even when painful, feels safe. That's why people cling to it. They have mistaken mental chaos for identity. But a Stoic would tell you, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. You are the gatekeeper, the sculptor, the one who decides which thoughts enter and which leave. And once you understand that, you stop being a prisoner. But here's the strange part. Many people don't actually want freedom because freedom demands responsibility. If your mind is free, you can no longer blame your circumstances, your past, your upbringing, your fears. If your mind is free, you must face yourself. And facing yourself is the most terrifying battle of all. So people stay stuck, not because they are weak, but because they are comfortable with their chains. The Stoics knew that the mind is the only territory over which you have absolute command. You can't control the world, you can't control people, you can't control outcomes, but you can control the thoughts you choose to engage with. And yet, most of us live as though our thoughts are our masters rather than our servants. You worry because the mind has learned worry as a habit. You stress because stress has become a familiar rhythm. You fear because fear has been rehearsed more times than courage. And then you call this personality. But personality is simply repeated patterns. Freeing your mind begins with breaking the patterns you didn't choose consciously. Ask yourself, how many of the fears you carry are truly yours? How many anxieties were borrowed from society, from parents, from culture, from past pain that should not have followed you into the present? How many assumptions have you accepted without examining them? The Stoics would urge you to interrogate every belief that causes distress, not with emotion, but with reason. Because most suffering is not caused by life itself, it's caused by the interpretation you attach to it. One person experiences failure and sees it as a doorway. Another experiences the same failure and calls it a death sentence. It is not the thing, but the mind that frames it. Epictetus said it best, man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. So if you want to free your mind, you must begin by reclaiming the authority you gave away. You must stop letting emotions dictate your direction. You must stop allowing fear to speak like a leader. You must stop accepting every thought as truth simply because it appeared in your head. Not every thought deserves your obedience. Not every feeling deserves your reaction. Not every impulse deserves your attention. But here's the secret that most never learn. The mind becomes free only when you discipline it. Freedom without discipline becomes chaos. Freedom without structure becomes emptiness. Freedom without reason becomes confusion. So the Stoics practiced the one thing modern people run from: Stillness. Sit with your thoughts long enough, and you start to see which ones are lies. Sit with your fears long enough, and you realize they have no foundation. Sit with your anger long enough, and you see it is rarely about the world and almost always about you. Sit with your desires long enough, and you discover which ones are distractions dressed as dreams. But people avoid stillness because silence exposes what noise hides. In stillness, there is no escape. You hear the truth of your own mind, unmasked. And at first, that truth is uncomfortable. But what is uncomfortable is usually what is necessary. A mind cannot be free if it is constantly running from itself. The world encourages distraction because a distracted person is easy to control, politically, socially, financially. But a person who is present, disciplined, attentive, that person is unshakable. Their mind cannot be manipulated because it is self-owned. Their peace cannot be stolen because it is internally crafted. Their focus cannot be hijacked because it is guarded. The Stoics understood this. The freer your mind becomes, the fewer things have power over you. Think about it. What controls you now? Is it fear of judgment? Is it the need for validation? Is it the pressure to appear successful? Is it your past mistakes? Is it the uncertainty of tomorrow? Every chain has a source, and when you identify the source, you weaken the chain. When you question it, you loosen it. When you confront it, you break it. A free mind is not a mind without challenges. It's a mind that refuses to be possessed by them. And yet, freeing your mind is not about positive thinking. It's not about pretending everything is fine. The Stoics weren't delusional, they were grounded. Freeing your mind means accepting that reality is indifferent. It doesn't cater to you, it doesn't adjust itself to your expectations, it doesn't apologize when things go wrong. But your interpretation, that is yours. And that interpretation shapes everything. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how can my mind grow from this? You stop asking, why is this so hard? And start asking, what strength is this trying to build? You stop saying, I can't handle this, and start reasoning, what if I can? Every challenge becomes training. Every setback becomes instruction. Every discomfort becomes a sharpening stone for the mind. This is freedom, not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of response. But to achieve this, you must do what most people refuse to do. You must examine your thoughts before believing them. You must question your stories before living by them. You must look at your fears with the eyes of reason. You must drag every assumption into the light. The unexamined mind is a cage. The examined mind becomes a doorway. Yet here is the irony. The mind will resist its own liberation. It will cling to old narratives because they feel like home. It will cling to familiar suffering because it's predictable. It will cling to old identities because growth requires ego death, and the ego fears death more than any enemy. So when you begin free in your mind, expect internal resistance, expect discomfort, expect moments where you question whether change is possible. But remember this, a chain feels heaviest right before it breaks. Free in your mind means understanding one timeless truth that the Stoics lived by. You cannot control everything, but you can control the thinker of everything, you. The mind that knows its own power becomes a fortress. The mind that understands its own patterns becomes unshakable. The mind that directs itself rather than being driven by impulse becomes a force. And once you reach that stage, something remarkable happens. You become calm in situations where others panic. You become clear in moments where others crumble. You become stable in storms that break the unprepared. People will say you've changed, but the truth is simpler. You've returned to yourself.
Most people think freeing the mind is about adding something, more knowledge, more inspiration, more motivation. But the Stoics understood that liberation is an act of subtraction. You don't free the mind by adding new thoughts. You free it by removing the ones that have been suffocating you. You strip away assumptions, peel back illusions, and discard expectations that never served you. The mind is freed not by accumulation, but by release. And yet release is the one thing people avoid. They cling to grudges because they feel justified. They cling to past mistakes because they feel familiar. They cling to identities that no longer fit because change feels like betrayal. But you cannot walk into a new mental world while dragging the ghosts of the old one behind you. Freedom requires letting go of the stories that keep you small. Think of how often you replay conversations that already happened, arguments that ended long ago, fears that never materialized. The mind, when untrained, wanders into the past and imagines danger in every shadow. It rehearses pain because that pain has become a habit. But the Stoics would ask, does this thought serve you? Does it strengthen you? Does it help you live with clarity and virtue? If not, why give it power? Why let it occupy space in your mind when your mind is the most sacred territory you possess? A free mind is selective. It chooses its thoughts the way a wise ruler chooses counsel, not by emotion, but by usefulness. But usefulness is not always comfortable. In fact, the thoughts that liberate you often feel like confrontation. They challenge your excuses. They expose your rationalizations. They strip away the comforting narratives you've used to avoid responsibility. The Stoics were not gentle with themselves, because freedom cannot come from softness. It comes from honesty. And the first honest truth you must face is this: much of what troubles you exists only in your interpretation. The event was real, but the suffering you built around it was optional. The mistake happened, but the shame you continue to carry is self-imposed. The fear you feel is not proof of danger, it is evidence of imagination without discipline. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, almost pleading, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His reminders were not motivational quotes, they were survival strategies. When the mind forgets its power, everything external becomes a threat. When the mind remembers its power, everything external becomes manageable. But remembering requires training. You must bring the mind back again and again, from fear to reason, from reaction to awareness, from impulse to intention. It will resist. It will wander. It will fight to maintain its old patterns. But each time you pull it back, you strengthen the muscle of attention. And attention is the key to liberation. Because the mind you do not control will be controlled by everything around you. Opinions, trends, emotions, past pain, imagined futures. And once the external world can control your inner world, you become unstable. You are angry when provoked, anxious when challenged, discouraged when criticized, inflated when praised. You become a puppet of circumstance. But the Stoics saw that real power is internal. The world can shake you, but it cannot shape you unless you surrender the authority of your own perception. Freeing your mind means reclaiming that authority. And to reclaim it, you must understand the nature of thoughts. They are not commands, they are not destiny. They are suggestions, mental proposals that you are free to accept or decline. A thought appears, you're not capable. You can decline. A doubt arises, this will go wrong. You can decline. A fear whispers, you will fail. You can decline. The untrained mind accepts everything. The disciplined mind evaluates before opening the door. This evaluation is what the Stoics called the discipline of assent, the practice of choosing which impressions deserve belief. Once you master this discipline, you master yourself. But the mastery of the mind is not won through dramatic breakthroughs. It is won through quiet, consistent action, the kind nobody sees, the kind nobody praises. You train the mind in the moments when distraction feels seductive. You discipline your thoughts when worry feels familiar. You stay present when escape would be easier. These moments are small, but they accumulate, and over time, they transform you from someone tossed by every emotional wave into someone who stands firm in every storm. This strength is invisible to the world, but you feel it. You become steady in situations that once destabilized you. You remain calm in moments that once consumed you. You begin to notice that you no longer react out of habit, you respond out of awareness. This is the quiet power of a mind that is becoming free. And yet freedom does not mean indifference. The Stoics did not numb their emotions, they understood them. They did not suppress their feelings, they refused to be ruled by them. A free mind feels deeply but thinks clearly. It acknowledges emotion without surrendering reason. It recognizes fear but still acts with courage. It experiences pain but does not amplify it with story and judgment. This balance is rare, because most people swing between extremes, either overwhelmed by emotion or detached from it. But the Stoics possessed a third path: maturity. Emotional maturity is the ability to feel without drowning, to think without disconnecting, to act without hesitation. To walk this path, you must practice the art of observation. You must learn to watch your thoughts as they arise, without immediately identifying them. You reach a point in your journey where the mind begins to reveal its final and most stubborn illusion: the belief that peace comes from external order. This is the last barrier, the last misunderstanding that keeps people trapped in quiet frustration. They convince themselves that life must align, that circumstances must settle, that others must behave, that the world must cooperate before they can finally exhale. But the Stoics knew something modern people avoid. You cannot fix the world by rearranging it. You can only fix your mind by strengthening it. Freedom is not granted by life becoming easier. Freedom is born the moment you stop demanding that life be easy. When your mind loosens its grip on how things should be, you stop suffering over how things are. This is the final stage of mental liberation, the point at which you stop wrestling with reality and begin walking alongside it. A free mind no longer negotiates its peace. It does not say, "I will be calm if," or "I will be focused when," or "I will be grounded once." Conditions are chains, and as long as your peace depends on something outside your control, you will remain enslaved to forces you can never command. The Stoic mind says, "I choose calm now. I choose clarity now. I choose discipline now." Not because the world allows it, but because my inner world demands it. And once you understand this, the chaos around you loses its power. You no longer get pulled into every argument, every noise, every drama. Things that once triggered you now look small. Challenges that once overwhelmed you now appear as passing weather. You realize nothing external ever truly disturbed you. It was your mind that handed those things permission to enter. But here is the part that most people never grasp. Freedom of mind is not achieved by removing problems, but by outgrowing them. The goal is not to avoid difficulty. The goal is to become someone for whom difficulty is simply another form of training. When you reach this level, people will misinterpret your calm. They will say you don't care, when in truth, you simply refuse to panic. They will say you're detached, when in reality, you are deeply grounded. They will say you are too quiet, not realizing your silence is not emptiness, but mastery. A free mind is not loud. It does not need to announce its strength. It moves through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can face anything, not because the future is predictable, but because they are prepared. The final freedom comes when you stop trying to control what is beyond you and start mastering what is within you. You stop asking for a lighter burden and instead develop stronger shoulders. You stop hoping for perfect conditions and instead sharpen your focus in imperfect ones. You stop waiting for the world to calm down and instead create calm in the middle of the storm. This is what the Stoics trained for, to remain unmoved by the shifting surface of life
anchored instead in principles, discipline, and reason. Because the world has never been stable. People have never been predictable. Circumstances have never been guaranteed. But your mind, if trained, can become something solid in a world made of waves. And when the mind reaches that solidity, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see life differently. What you once labeled as problems now appear as neutral events. What you once reacted to emotionally, you now respond rationally. What once consumed your energy now barely touches you. You stop chasing things that never mattered and start pursuing what actually builds you. Your desires become fewer but sharper. Your priorities become clearer. Your life becomes simpler, not because you have less, but because you carry nothing unnecessary in your thoughts. Simplicity is the natural result of a mind that has learned to let go. Letting go is the final lesson, not the shallow, motivational kind of letting go that sounds poetic but means nothing. Real letting go is brutal. It means releasing the identities you've clung to, the stories that have shaped you, the expectations that have limited you, the fears that have controlled you. It means accepting that who you were is not who you must remain. It means forgiving yourself for the years you spent lost in your own head. It means understanding that your past self was doing the best they could with the tools they had. And now you have new tools, a sharper awareness, a calmer spirit, a clearer sense of what matters. Why cling to the chains that belonged to an older version of you? The ultimate mental freedom is the ability to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. When anger arises, you see it, but do not become it. When fear appears, you acknowledge it, but do not obey it. When doubt whispers, you hear it, but do not kneel before it. Your mind becomes a place where thoughts pass like clouds across the sky, not storms that uproot you, but weather that comes and goes without possessing you. People misunderstand Stoicism as emotional numbness, but that is not freedom, that is suppression. The Stoics felt deeply, but they refused to drown in their feelings. They held their emotions with gentle discipline, allowing them to exist without letting them rule. And once you reach this stage, gratitude becomes natural, not forced. You begin to appreciate simple things that were invisible before: breathing, presence, quiet moments, small victories, the ability to choose your response, the realization that no matter what happens outside, your inner world remains in your possession. Gratitude is not a practice, it becomes a state of being. Because when your mind is free, the smallest aspects of life feel like gifts, and the largest challenges feel like invitations. You stop fighting the present moment and start participating in it. True presence becomes possible only when the mind stops resisting reality. Eventually, the free mind becomes a guide for others, not through preaching, but through presence. People who are still trapped in mental chaos will sense something different about you. They will wonder why you don't break under pressure, why you don't overreact, why you don't crumble at uncertainty. They will think you are lucky, not realizing your calm is engineered. They will think you're gifted, not realizing your clarity is trained. They will think you have something they don't, not realizing the door you walked through is open for anyone who dares to step inside themselves. Freeing your mind does not make life easier, it makes you stronger. It does not remove obstacles, it transforms them into opportunities for growth. It does not guarantee comfort, it guarantees resilience. You cease being at the mercy of circumstances. You cease being a slave to impulses. You cease being shaped by chaos. Instead, you shape yourself. You become the architect of your thoughts, the commander of your actions, the master of your inner world. And once you master the inner world, the outer world loses its power to wound you. This is the final liberation. Not a life without difficulty, but a mind that cannot be defeated by it. Not a life without uncertainty, but a mind unfazed by it. Not a life without storms, but a mind that walks through them with quiet strength. And in that strength lies the deepest freedom you will ever know. Because once your mind is free, everything else becomes manageable. Everything else becomes lighter. Everything else becomes possible. A free mind is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new way of living. Most people believe they are thinking, but the truth is simpler and far more brutal. They're just rehearsing the same fears, the same doubts, the same stories they've been telling themselves for years. They want freedom, yet they carry the same chains they never question. They speak of wanting peace, yet they refuse to release the thoughts that disturb them. They want clarity, but keep feeding the noise. And the Stoics would say, how could a mind be free if it is constantly imprisoned by its own unexamined beliefs? Look around you. Everyone is rushing, scrolling, comparing, competing, drowning quietly in thoughts that are not even theirs. And yet when you ask them what they truly want, they speak of peace. They speak of purpose. They speak of wanting a calm mind, a steady heart, a clear direction. But how can you build clarity on chaos? How can you walk a straight path when your mind keeps tripping you at every step? Freeing your mind is not a poetic ideal. It's a discipline, a practice, a confrontation with the truth you've been avoiding. You have become addicted to your own mental noise. The constant thinking